Alright, this is part two of what am I thinking about while I'm riding, so welcome back. And I'm just going through the thought process and the kind of things I think about in relation to the roads and the traffic and all that sort of stuff while I'm riding. I was talking in the last bit about riding to the conditions now. Here, for example, I'm coming to a T intersection where there's no give way sign, but I know I've got to give way to the traffic coming straight through. So I need to just slow down and stop and look right and left and make sure it's safe before I continue. When I'm saying ride to the conditions, I mean if you know about the roads, like I know this road because I've travelled here quite a few times. I come out to this little village of Evandale a lot. So I do know the roads reasonably well, but I don't get overconfident about them, so I know where the intersections and things like that are. If you don't know the road, then you need to ride a little bit more cautiously. You need to ride to the weather conditions, and in Tasmania one of the things that is noticeable is that the weather can change quite dramatically and quite quickly. It can be warm and sunny and bright and all that sort of stuff one minute, and especially if you're on the west coast, it can become overcast, cold and wet very quickly, and visibility can be a problem. And some of the roads there are not they're not in really bad broken up condition, but they're not great roads when you're riding in those sort of conditions. Now I know I'm coming up to a T intersection here, so I know I've got to start slowing down using both brake levers so that I don't get that surge of weight over the front wheel, and putting my left foot out ready to put it to the ground when the bike comes to a halt, and looking both ways. Even if I had the right of way, which I don't, if I had the right of way, arguing about it isn't of any value because I'm going to come off worse. So I just have to wait till there's a break in the traffic and somebody can either see me and see this guy's trying to get out and give me a break, or I just wait till there is a break and get on the road again. This is the village township, I'm not sure what the right word is, of Evandale. It's full of lots of historic buildings and lots of traffic in town today. It's a Sunday, Mother's Day, but it's also there's a big market in Evandale on a Sunday, so there is a lot of traffic in town. I've got to break into traffic and keep going, and as you can see there are cars on both sides of the road, and I've got to be conscious of the cars on the left hand side especially, to make sure that somebody doesn't just pull out into the traffic without having checked their mirrors to see that I'm there. Somebody doesn't get out of their car, open the door without looking to see that I'm coming. In any of those situations I'm going to end up worse off, so I need to be conscious of that and looking at those cars and seeing if there are tail lights or somebody's got a foot on the brake or smoke coming out of an exhaust or something like that. Coming up to another T intersection and a give way sign, so again I've got to, using both brakes, slow the bike down gently rather than suddenly with that sudden shift of weight to the front, putting my left foot down, making sure it's safe before I pull out onto the road here. And as you can see, there's a lot of traffic coming towards me, so I just have to be patient. And again, you can see as I pull out onto this road that there are cars again parked on both sides of the roads. And so those things I just said about looking at the traffic on the left hand side, noticing if there are people in the cars or if there are exhaust coming out of the tailpipe, if lights are on because somebody's got their foot on the brake, and hoping that no one's going to open a door without at least looking in their mirror and seeing that I'm there, or that they're at least going to put on a blinker before they pull out into the traffic, so that I know that they're there and I can adjust my position in the lane accordingly, or I can slow down and not having to slam on the brakes quickly. If you have to brake suddenly, if you're a motorcyclist, you know the weight of your bike is going to go forward, and then that weight's got to go somewhere, and it generally goes to the side and you're struggling to keep the bike upright. Evandale is a residential area, so the speed limit's 50 here, and you can see that there are markings in the centre of the road, and there's curbing and guttering, so forth, and even there's guardrails and even a bit of a shoulder, but that's not the case all the way along this road. I'm passing a cyclist there, and it gave me some thinking about cyclists and rail crossings. So we'll deal with the cyclists first of all, and you'll see those signs that say pass cyclists, give cyclists 1.5 metres, and I think that's a good idea, and I try to do that myself when I'm riding my motorcycle or I'm driving a car. But the rider that goes with that is providing it is safe. Now, if I'm in my motorcycle, I can just move closer to the centre lane and give the cyclist plenty of room. If I'm in one of my cars is very small, like Mr. Bean's car, so I can move closer to the centre line and give them room, but the other one's a Camry and it's not quite as small, so it's a little bit more difficult. If you have a big SUV or a 4x4 dual cab ute, it is very difficult for you to give them 1.5 metres, especially on a road like this, because there's not lots of room, especially if there's traffic coming in the opposite direction. So what you need to do there is just slow down till you get past the cyclist. If you're going past them at full chat here at 80 or 100 kilometres an hour, you'll bring a lot of wind behind you, a lot of air is behind you. When you whoosh past those cyclists, it can be quite disconcerting, might even destabilise them a little bit. If they're riding side by side, that makes things a little bit more difficult for you. But riding side by side means it takes you half as long to pass the group as it does if they were riding single file. So cyclists have a right to the road. They've been given that right by the authorities, and we just need to accept that and give them a little bit of room. And if you cannot give them the 1.5 metres, give them as much as you can, bearing in mind your own safety, but perhaps just slow down a little bit as you go past them. Now, I mentioned rail crossings. That's the second one that we've come across on this road, and unless it is otherwise stated, it is reasonable to assume that the rail crossing is still in use. Some crossings are not, because that line has been closed, but unless there's a sign saying that, it's reasonable to assume that this rail crossing is still in use. And even if the lights are not flashing and the bells are not ringing, it's a good idea as you come to the rail crossing to look right and left and make sure that it's clear to cross the track. There is always the remote possibility, I know, but there's always the possibility that the signalling system will fail one time. Now, if the lights are flashing and the bells are ringing, then for goodness sake, just stop and wait. Think about how much distance you need to stop your 2-tonne SUV or your 2.5-tonne 4x4 dual cab ute. Then multiply that by a 20 or 30 or 40, I don't know how big a diesel locomotive and carriages is in terms of weight, but obviously it's going to need a lot of distance to slow down and stop. So if the lights are flashing, it's to give you sufficient warning to stop, to allow the train to go through without the train driver having to make any adjustments to his speed. If you're rushing through, thinking I'll just get through before the train gets here, you are putting yourself in grave danger. The train driver will be able to see you, but will not be able to slow that train down in sufficient time to avoid an accident. So just wait. You're going to be a few minutes late for your appointment or wherever it is you have to be, but you'll get there, and you'll get there alive, and you'll get there safely. So don't do anything dumb when it comes to a level crossing. Now we're coming towards the airport, and there are roundabouts here, so remember those rules as far as I understand them. In an ideal world, you are supposed to wait till any traffic that is already on the roundabout has left the roundabout before you enter. Now, if traffic's going straight through, as it is there, and I'm going straight through, that seems a bit silly, but that's the rule. Remember, when you leave the roundabout, you're supposed to signal that you're turning left. And this road goes into 2 lanes here, and there's 2 lanes on the other side, separated by a safety barrier. That's because of the amount of traffic that goes out to the airport or comes in from the airport because of tourism, obviously. So be aware if you're travelling around this airport that there is a lot of traffic, whether you're on a motorcycle or in a car, that there is a lot of traffic, a lot of cabs, sometimes shuttle buses and so on, and just drive according to those conditions as well. Here you can see there's a pretty wide shoulder on the left-hand side there. Be aware also of the road markings and what they mean. Which lane are you in and which way are you going? If you want to turn left, get in the left lane. If you want to turn right, stay in the right lane, and so on. Make your intentions clear so that the people who are behind you, either in the same lane as you or in the opposite and the adjacent lane, know what you are going to do and can adjust their behaviour and their driving accordingly. And there's a second roundabout coming up here, and so I know that that's coming, and so I adjust my speed accordingly, and I get myself in a position in the lane where I want to be. I know I'm probably going to go straight through this roundabout. I know I am going to go straight through the next roundabout. No, this is in fact not the one where I'm going to go straight through. I'm going to go 270 degrees when I come to this roundabout. So I'm not going to take the first exit, so therefore I don't signal left. I would signal that I'm going right there, So I'm not taking this first exit. I keep going around the roundabout with my right blinker on, indicating that I'm going right, and I get close to the edge of the roundabout here. I'm also not taking this exit, so I don't signal left that I'm leaving here, but I signal left now to indicate that I'm going to take this exit off the roundabout. And this is a alternate route to some of Launceston's southern and southeastern suburbs, and it would be the case that if you were going to those suburbs or coming from those suburbs, you'd probably take this road rather than take the Midland Highway, which is what you would be on if you went straight through that roundabout. The Midland Highway runs parallel to this road. I'm sure the name, I can't remember what the name of this road is. It's over on the Midland Highway is over on the left, so you can't see it, but I'm saying these two roads run parallel. This is not a major highway, therefore. It's got markings down both edges and markings down the middle, and there's a reasonable shoulder in parts, but I can't be certain that it's a sealed surface or rather than just a gravel surface. So those things that I've said to you before about making sure when you stop on the side of the road that the shoulder is firm and there's not a big gap between a big drop from the edge of the road to the shoulder, and the shoulder is firm, so when you kick the stand down, the stand doesn't sink down into the mud and you're suddenly up to halfway up your stand in mud, and you find in loose soft dirt or something, you find it difficult to pull your bike back up. And then of course look over your shoulder and make sure that it's safe before you step off your bike, or if you can, step off towards the left side of your bike, just for the sake of safety. You can see here that the tree line is generally back from the road a fair bit, so that visibility is good. You can see around curves and bends what's coming. You're also not going to have a lot of that shadowing and dappling of light that you'd get if the trees were closer to the edge of the road. That could still be a problem here in the afternoon, but at this time of the day, when it's middle of the day and the sun's overhead, it's not going to be a problem. But it means that if you're driving this road later in the afternoon, when you do get that dappling of shadows on the road, that you probably have to adjust your riding speed just a little bit, just to be a bit more cautious. You think, I can't see all the way around this bend, I don't know what's around the bend there, so I'll just slow down a little bit till I get a better view of it. Talking earlier about the speed limit, and I think the speed limit probably on here is at least 80, maybe even more, but again, as I said, that doesn't necessarily mean you need to ride at the 100 or the 80 or whatever it is, but it does mean if you're going to ride a little bit slower, then you should, wherever possible, make some room so that people can get past you. Always, as I said, ride to the conditions and ride to your own ability. And so if you're in a group with people and they're all riding at 100 or 110 and you don't feel comfortable doing that, then just drop your speed back a bit. Hopefully someone will notice that you drop your speed back, and they'll drop back with you so that they're travelling with you. Or if you're driving in a group and you've arranged a stopping point, that they'll wait at the stopping point till you get there, which might be 5 minutes after they do. They'll have got their coffees and filled up and all that sort of stuff before you get there, but they won't just say, well, we're all here, we're okay, we'll just take off, we'll leave you. That's not how it's all supposed to work. Anyhow, I'm travelling down this road here, which, as I said, takes you to some of Launceston's southern and southeastern suburbs. So it'll take you eventually to Kings Meadows, which we'll come to shortly, but you can also get to places like Punchbowl and St Leonard's, and I can't remember the name of the other suburbs, sorry. I'm talking about things that I can't remember the names of the suburbs. This is not part of Launceston that I know a lot about, because I don't go here a lot. I do travel on this road a little bit, but I don't necessarily know all the suburbs. Or Youngtown and Relbia are other suburbs or localities that you get to off this road. You see not a lot of traffic on this road, but traffic on the left-hand side there, and when you're riding along, you can see there's a marking on the road. It indicates there's a give way sign, and that person is supposed to give way to you. But nevertheless, you've still got to look over there and think, when I see a car there, I hope that car stopped, I hope that car has seen me. And just, always trying to anticipate what the other person might do and adjust your behaviour and your riding accordingly. So we're in a sort of semi-residential area. There's also some light industry here. The surface of the road looks pretty good. The markings are there. There are shoulder in some places where it's a bus stop or a cycle way. And again, cars on the left-hand side. So when you're going past parked cars like that, always just be having a quick look and see, is there anyone in the car? Are the tail lights on? Is there any smoke coming out of the exhaust pipe? Hoping that if somebody's going to suddenly pull out, they put their blinker on. If somebody's going to get out of their car, they look in the mirror before they open the door. Even if they've looked in the mirror and they opened the door, you've still got to be aware, well, this door might open now, so I better move just a little bit further to the centre to avoid them. There's not a lot of traffic on this road, but you can see it's sort of, I wouldn't say busy, but there is traffic on it, so it's not a case of where you can just ride here and sit back and relax and not worry about things. You've got to be conscious of the cars that are going the same way as you are, the cars that are parked the same way as you are, but also the cars that are coming in the opposite direction in case somebody suddenly decides to make a turn, they forgot to put their blinker on, or they see you coming but they think, well, I can just get across before this bloke on the bike comes up to me. I've got enough time to do that. The other thing to do, of course, have a look at these markings that are on the road, the arrows that indicate which lane you should be in. If you want to go straight ahead, stay in this lane. If you want to go left, there will be a lane that says go left. So try and get in the right lane as quickly as you can, the correct lane, should I say, for what you want to do, so that you don't have to make a last-minute decision and try and squeeze into the traffic, or as a result of squeezing in, cause the car drivers behind you to get snarky because, well, you've squeezed your bike in there and why didn't you get in the right lane in the first place, and so on. I'm keeping my eye on the car that's in front of me. There's plenty of distance, following distance as it's called, between myself and them, and I slow down here, he stops, I stop and give myself plenty of distance between him, and I'm saying it to him, that's just an assumption, but I give myself plenty of room between myself and the vehicle in front so that I don't end up running into them or making a sudden stop. There's going to be a bit stop-start down here because there are traffic lights and pedestrian crossings and all that sort of stuff, so it's going to happen a couple of times. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to keep an eye on what this person in the van is doing. When they stop, I need to start slowing down. I need to give myself plenty of room between them and me. And as I said in the earlier video, I'm trying to avoid that worst case scenario of I'm so close to the person in front of me that if somebody behind me doesn't stop in time and rear ends me, they then force me into the back of the car in front of me. So what was a 2-car bingle becomes a 3-car bingle. The bloke behind me is responsible for my damage, but I'm now responsible for the damage of the vehicle in front of me because I ran into the back of it. Whilst it was might have been the person behind me's fault, I've got to give myself enough room to hopefully not have that situation arise in the first place. I'm a little bit closer this time than I wanted to be, but the person driving the van made a sudden stop. So straight ahead or left. I know this, I've been down this road a few times, so I know there's a few intersections on the right and left, and also there are a number of sets of traffic lights. I'm riding according to that, assuming that even if the light is green, that it could change before I get to it for a start, but also that there could be traffic banked up, and so the car in front of me might get across on the green, but then suddenly it's going to go orange and I'm not going to get across. So these are things you've got to, this is what I'm thinking about while I'm riding. Think, well, okay, there's a traffic light, what do I do now? Should I slow down, not assume it's green and just speed up? So this pedestrian crossing here, the lights have gone red, the other guy got through. Pedestrian crossing, so obviously you've got to stop when lights are red, you let the pedestrian go across, and then the lights start flashing orange, and apparently when the lights start flashing orange it's safe to go. But then you want to be careful, because I know that there are more lights just up ahead here, and I don't want to be opening the throttle and going at full speed, even 50 kilometres an hour, because I could be caught up behind this person who stopped because of those traffic lights. So what I'm trying to show here is the thinking process, and what's going through my head as I'm riding, and what sort of things I think other riders should be doing. Scanning the road, checking what's coming out on my right, what's coming out on my left. Am I in the right lane? Are the traffic lights going to go? Are they already green? Are they going to go orange while I'm trying to get through them? Now I'm through all the traffic lights, and I know there's not any for a little while. But am I in the right lane, where I want to go? And it turns out I think I'm in the right lane. So I'm going ahead here as if everything's fine. There are no cars parked on the left hand side in this lane, because there's obviously there's no parking allowed along here. So I'm safe as far as anybody opening their door or suddenly pulling out of a driveway, or at least I hope I am. But then I find I'm in the turning lane and I don't want to turn. I realise when I'm in this lane now, a little bit later as I start to move up, because the traffic in front of me is moving, that it is a turning lane and I actually want to go straight ahead. So rather than just, oops, I made a mistake and I try and squeeze in, it's too late now. I've got to go around this turn here. Coming up to a sort of shopping area with cars on the left hand side again, so I've got to be careful about any of those drivers opening their door, all those sort of things I've talked about before. And again, I'm thinking I'm in the correct lane for where I want to go, and it turns out that again it's a turning lane and it's not where I wanted to go, but I'm in that lane, so I've got to follow the instruction and go around this lane. And I get to about here and realise, well, this is not the right way. I've got to pull off and turn around. Now I probably haven't picked the best spot in the world to do that, because I can't necessarily see too far ahead what might be coming down the hill towards me, and even if I can see it, I don't know if the car drivers that are coming down that hill if there was a car driver coming down that hill, whether they can react in sufficient time to see me making a U-turn here. Fortunately, there was nobody coming down the hill, nobody coming up the hill. I just go to the traffic lights and then I can make the left turn that I wanted, so I can get where I needed to be. This is an intersection that's known as the Five Ways, because there's 5 roads obviously that lead into it. And that complicates things because there are traffic lights to control everything, but still you've got to make sure when you're approaching this intersection that you know which lane you want to be in to make the turn that you want to make. So I think I'm out of the area that's known as the area called Kings Meadows, where that large shopping centre was, and now I'm coming into another suburb, I think, that's called Glen Dhu. 2 separate words, G-L-E-N, as in the word Glen that you often hear in relation to places in Scotland, and Dhu spelt D-H-U, which leads me to think that Glen Dhu is probably a place in Scotland. And as I mentioned, I think in the part 1 of this, there are lots of places around Launceston that have some sort of link to Scotland. So there are the north and southeast rivers, there is Glen Dhu and Ben Lomond or Ben Lomond, depending on how you say it, the mountain range that's sort of southeast of Launceston where the ski fields are. And again, I'm wanting to give myself a bit of room between the vehicle in front and myself, just for the sake of that safety that I was talking about before. So these are all the thought processes that I'm going through as I'm riding, keeping my hands over the brake levers at all times like this, because it's stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. And I want to be able to, I don't want to be fiddling around trying to reach a brake lever. Using both brake levers to avoid that sudden surge of weight over the front. So thanks for watching. I hope some of this has been instructional and useful for you. If you have a comment, leave it in the appropriate place and I will respond when I become aware of it. Thank you for watching.